So life rarely goes exactly as planned, even when we have those smart goals, right? So how do we stay committed? How do we stay committed and how do we stay flexible? Today we're talking about the power of adaptation and how to adjust your priorities, how to adjust your life, how to adjust your goals and be flexible without losing your momentum and being consistent. Hey, this is Dr. Dwain Woode, and I'm so excited that you're here to join me for my 100-day walk to consistency. This is day number 59. Each day that you show up, you're creating a more consistent, a more self-confident, a better version of yourself by proving that you're showing up for yourself. So let's go ahead, let's start. I'll see you on the walk. So we've been talking about staying on track, staying on plan when life gets busy. But what about if the plans themselves have to change? Are we able to adjust? Are we able to adapt? A lot of my stories, a lot of what's happened to me comes directly from my time in school, in medical school, and seeing patients. And one of the most challenging parts of my career, notice parts of my career has been the times when I've had to change, when I've had to adapt. So you may not know this, if you've seen my story, hear my story. I started out not planning to do medicine. In fact, medicine was the furthest thing from my mind. Not that I didn't like it, it just was not something I had ever considered. And so I went to school. I started out my career in college as a theology major. That's right, theology. And so got all the way to the junior year and then decided I was changing my career. And I picked up a degree in math and a degree in computer science. And that's what I ended up graduating with, math and computer science. And I went to graduate school. And I was in a PhD program in computer science. And I was there for 3 years. And then, yeah, that's right, you're guessing it, decided I was going to change. And that's when I ended up in medicine. So in all of those instances, the plan had to change. It wasn't that I was busy. It wasn't that I had not set smart goals and I had not, done the research and all of that. It was my plan itself had to change. There was no way to tweak my schedule. There was no prioritization. There was no, to-do list. There was no finding the most important thing for the day. The plan had to change. And so in that instance, I had to be super, super flexible, right? And I had to adapt. Now, I'll tell you, part of the adaptation was difficult for me. Yeah, it was. And so I had to rethink and had to go through a lot of soul searching about the changes that I made. And that may be the case, but it is what we need to do if we're going to be successful. If we're not going to allow life's changes and challenges to push us off of our quest for success, then we have to be adaptable and we've got to be flexible. And today we're talking about that. And it is, once again, one of those important keystone principles and keystone conversations that we will have, because it really does set us up for success when we are able to, I think I'm going to go down this way. Yeah, let's do that. When we're able to adapt and be flexible. So why is that adaptation key, right? So we're talking about learning to adapt and be flexible with your goals. So why is it important? Well, people often quit on their goals, not because they aren't motivated, but because they don't have a plan, right? You've heard me say that. I wonder where you've heard me say that, or where you've heard that. Yeah, I say that all the time. So one of the most exciting things for me is to see maybe a favorite basketball player or football player or someone who's really good at something, right? A person, a musician, pianist, a bassist, right? All of those are people who put time into what they're doing. And to see someone who is there, someone who has put the time in to get to that level of expertise is great. But do you know how they got there? Now, there are some people who have natural talent, and I'm not going to knock that. There's some people who come out of the womb and they can play Mozart and they can play, any piece that you give them. But aside from those people, most of the rest of us, you know what we have to do? We got to practice. We have to have a way of honing those skills, of developing muscle memory, of developing the ability that may be in us but is not fully developed. And if we don't have structure, if we don't have a method for effectively doing that, then what happens is we end up stumbling around life for years and years and years. And there are people who are grown right now who are still struggling with certain concepts and certain ideas and certain behaviors because of the lack of structure. And so as we talk about changing our plan, first of all, you got to have a plan, okay? Unexpected obstacles are going to come up. And so if you have a plan, it's easier for you to look at the plan and for you make adjustments. Because if you don't have a plan, then you don't really know where this new thing fits in. And how do I be flexible? How am I going to be able to be flexible if I don't even know what my plan is? Okay? So number one, we got to have a plan. Think about an airplane. Pilots don't just fly in a straight line, right? They go from one place to another, and then they are redirected. Aircraft traffic control tell them, hey, turn 2 degrees this way, 1 degree that way, up or down. And that is what is going on. We are heading to that thing that we call success, whatever we've defined success as. On the way there, so the plan is to get there, okay? On the way there, the path that we take can be different. The procedures that we go through, the things we have to learn, the certifications we've got to get, all of those can be different. But the goal is that thing over there that we're calling success. And so just like the airplane, just like the airplane and the pilot, we have to adjust as different things come up. I recently went to, where did we go recently? Oh, we went to Miami. And on the way to Miami, there was some bad weather. And so the pilot came on and, this is your pilot. And I just want to let you know that we see some thunderstorms ahead, or I forgot what exactly he said was ahead. And so we're going to change our direction a little bit to try to avoid that. We may end up going a little higher, but I want to make sure that you understand that we're just taking precautions and remain, seatbelt signs are on. Please make sure that you're remaining seated and with your seatbelts fastened, and follow the directions of the flight attendants. Okay? So what did we have to do? We had to change. We had to adjust where we were going. Not that we were not still going to get to the destination, but we had to change how we got there. So very, very important. So a key insight here, key point, is that success isn't about following a perfect plan. It's about learning and adjusting while we keep going forward. That part right there, that last line, forward. So we're moving, and as we move, the momentum of our movement will sometimes push us and give us direction. If you're standing still, then it's difficult to break the inertia. And I'm gonna tell you, there are times where I have stopped doing something, and because either life got busy or some obstacle presented itself, and I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna do this right now. Now, when I went back to do it, and I was motivated, I was excited, I had to almost relearn. And it took me longer, right, to get into that space. of being consistent again. So that's one of the reasons when we talked about yesterday about when life gets busy, the idea was to keep going. So even if it's a small part of what you're doing, even if it's, it's not the entire plan, then we keep going. And that is so important. And so when we're talking about being adaptable and flexible, it's not that we are scrapping the plan, but we're moving forward and we're making adjustments as we go through the space and talk about being successful. Okay, so what are three signs that it's time to adapt your goal? What are three signs that it's time to adapt your goal? What is the benefit of a sign? What's the benefit of a sign? Now, signs can give direction, right? Go that way. Signs can give, can alert you, say you are here. It's kind of like in the mall. So it gives direction, tells you go that way. It lets you know where you are, right? It gives you perspective. And signs can also let you know if you're heading in the right direction. And so how do we know when it's time for us to change, when it's time for us to adjust a goal? And here's something, right? So number one, your life circumstances have changed. That's a big one. And it can be a challenge for many of us. So when you sit down and you come up with your SMART goals, you're creating those goals based on your current situation. You're basing it on what your current interests are, what your current definition of success is, what your current level of training, expertise is, right? All of that comes into play. So if life circumstances change, so you move, or there is someone who passes in the family, or you become ill and are unable to do some of the things that you thought you would be able to do, then those may be signs that it's time to adjust your goal. Now, this doesn't mean that simply because those things happen, then you've got to adjust the goal. But those are indications and times when people need to adjust their goals. Often we don't, because we've created this plan. By God, this is going to be the thing that I do. And we fail to take into consideration that it may not be the thing that we want to do anymore. Yeah, because we change. And often, because it is so ingrained in us, we persist and we persist and we persist. And because we're having challenges in that process, not because of any necessarily external thing, but just because our alignment is no longer there. Right? The alignment with our why is no longer there. And so we're doing all this stuff and we're using energy, but we're not heading in the direction that our bodies and our personhood and our authentic selves want to go. Okay? So number one, your life circumstances change. If something in your personal or professional life changes, if it's shifted, your goals need to shift as well. All right, so always keep an eye out for that. If an injury prevents you from running, then it doesn't mean that you have to stop exercising. Maybe you now start lifting, right? That's a pivot. That's a change. Okay? Number one, life circumstances. Number two, you're no longer excited about the goal. Now, I'm not talking about, I am not succeeding, and so I'm no longer excited. I'm talking about really, truly, this thing doesn't do it for me anymore. I'm trying to think of something that doesn't do it for me anymore, that didn't do it for me anymore. But you get the idea, right? So maybe you like basketball, maybe you like football, maybe you like baseball, maybe you like to play racquetball, maybe you like to write, but you no longer get joy, you no longer get excitement from writing or from playing that sport. Then it's time to consider, okay, maybe I need to change what I'm doing and do something different. Okay, so maybe you set a goal to write a book, but now you're interested in public speaking. Guess what? It changes. So that doesn't mean that you are giving up on your life's goals. It means that you are changing the goals. And I'm pivoting and I'm planning to do something different. Okay? So life goals change. Another way to know that it's time to pivot is that not only are you having changes in your life, but not only is the excitement gone, but you find that it is a chore. So not just the excitement, but maybe the excitement is there. Maybe you still tell yourself, hey, this is a great thing for me, but I just can't get into it. It seemed to become such a hardship for me now, okay? Now, let me hasten to say, because I hear some of you saying, well, there are things in our lives that are going to be hard. And I'm not talking about those things, right? I'm talking about taking a long, soul-searching look at what's going on and the reasons for why you are feeling and doing what you're doing currently, okay? So make sure you're looking at that. And then how do we adjust goals without losing motivation? Because I'll tell you, when I had to make those changes in my career, there were times I felt like, you know what? This is just crazy, right? So I changed from that one to this one, changed from that one to this one. I'm like, well, do I have the drive? And so when I was in medical school, and I told you about my dear friend who said to me, well, you are a doctor, all we got to do is get you the degree. One of the challenges that I had, one of the reasons why that period was so difficult was because I had to pivot, I had to change. And some of the motivation, right, that I had, because I got out of the college and I was excited, got to graduate school, I was excited, I'm putting it all in, and then I changed. And so I'm like, man, I've been putting all my excitement into this other stuff. What do I need to do here? Okay, so that is something to consider, right? So how do we pivot? How do we change without losing motivation? Number one, we focus on our core vision, not just the path. And this goes back to rhythm, alignment, and structure. Rhythm, alignment, and structure. So the core principle is what your purpose, what your why is. Now, the why and purpose can be different, but in this case, we're talking about them being the same. So what is my function? What am I supposed to be doing? What are my principles? What are those things that are core to me? And are the things I'm doing, are they aligning with that? Okay? And if I have to pivot, remember, we're pivoting, we're changing. We're not changing the principles. We're not changing the core value. We're not changing our core selves. But what we're changing is the way that we get there. Okay? So number one, focus on the core. What is your core? Not necessarily on the path, because the path is going to be different, right? Now, I'm walking here, and I can end up, so my office is back that way, okay? And so as I'm walking, it seems as though I'm going in the wrong direction. But here in a minute, we're going to make a little loop, and then I'm going to be heading back in that direction. It's kind of like that plane where we've got to go in one place, but because of the storm, because of some turbulence, we had to adjust our direction. We had to adjust the path, but we're not adjusting what the core is and where we're heading, right? So if your goal was to meditate every morning, but your schedule changed, maybe you shift it to the evening. If your goal was to write 10 pages a day and something happens where you're not able to do that, maybe you write 5 pages a day. Now we're heading in the same direction, we're ending up at the same place, but the path that we're using to get there is different, right? So focus on the core. Create flexible milestones. As you're going through your plan, instead of setting goals that are rigid deadlines, create adaptive progress milestones, right? So this has to be done on March 4th at 2:00. Well, how about changing that to say that I need to get this done the week of March 4th, right? So that gives me some time. Instead of saying that I got to write 100 pages by whenever, right? Say I'm going to write 50 pages, and give yourself a span, give yourself a time where you can do that. So instead of saying I must be 10 pounds in 2 months, say I will be steadily improving and I'm losing a pound a week, half a pound a week, right? See what I've done? So instead of that hard deadline, instead of that thing that says, okay, if I'm not here, I failed, then what I've done is I've created a range that allows me to be flexible within that. So one interesting thing, and it comes up me here, something that I want to talk about. It wasn't a concept that I mentioned earlier, but often when we have to pivot, when we have to change those goals, we feel like we've failed. Because after all, if I've got to change, that means I couldn't succeed. And the first thought there is that there are lots of reasons why people have to change. Life circumstances, injury, some change in their desire, some change in their likes. And as we grow, our thoughts will change. Our behaviors will change. Our interests will change. That doesn't mean that we have failed. It just means that we've got to now adjust, okay, to this new system or this new thought, this new plan. And so as you are thinking about pivoting and changing, you're not failing. You are just adjusting what you need to do in order to maintain success and to move in that direction. Okay? So create flexible milestones. Then develop a pivot plan in advance. Man, life is going to happen. Yeah? You agree? Life is going to happen. And so if we don't plan for life to happen, then we're actually planning to not be successful. Let me say it again. If we don't have a plan that says, okay, if this doesn't go like I think, if this doesn't go like I'm expecting, and I don't have a plan to adjust to that, then we're actually setting ourselves up to not be successful. Because life's going to happen. It may not happen in the way you thought, but if you are in the mindset of, okay, I've got a backup plan, I've got something that I can do, and you've thought through that process, then when something happens, even if it's not the one you expected something to happen. Okay? Yeah. So come up with a plan. So develop a plan in advance. Have a backup plan for when obstacles happen. If your work gets too busy for daily workouts, commit to a minimum effort. Right? So yesterday we talked about what's the minimum that you need to do for something. Drinking water, for exercising, for stretching, for your diet. What's the minimum that I have to do? And build that into your day. Build that into your routine. And then accept that setbacks are part of a journey. Whoa, 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 whoa. Setbacks are a part of the journey. When I was growing up and into my early life, I wanted the small house, the white picket fence, the 2.5 kids and the dog, right? And my beautiful wife in that whole process. And I don't have 2.5 kids. I got one amazing son. I don't have a dog. I don't even have a cat or a bird or a fish. And I've got my amazing wife. But that's different. That's different than what I planned. Now, this didn't all occur because of setbacks, but it was not the vision that I had. And so sometimes our vision, if we're not careful, if the vision doesn't come true, then we think, oh, this is a setback and this is a failure. Okay? And so setbacks will happen. It may not happen the way you think it's going to happen, but understand that this is the case. And this doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. Doesn't mean that somebody's after you. Doesn't mean that there's a conspiracy against you. It's life. Right? That's what happens. Life happens. And so our goal, and remember limitless living says that I'm not allowing anything from outside of me, right? Those external things, situations, and I'm not allowing anything from inside of me, the way I respond and react to those things, to change what I do, to put obstacles, roadblocks in my way, I've got to deal with all of those so that I can be successful in my journey, and I can be the consistent, self-confident person that I am trying to create. Okay? So in your the most successful people expect setbacks, and they build them into their day. They build them into their plan. They build them into whatever it is they're doing. Their SMART goals, part of that is, what's happened when setbacks occur. So if you miss a week of training, if you miss a day of walking, hey, okay, I can go back and watch the video. I'm not a failure because I missed a day. And you can go ahead and you set that, you make sure that you are doing what you need to do to be successful in that space. Okay? Awesome. All right. Well, you know that whenever we have these conversations, we can't ever leave without having a challenge. And so here's our challenge. Go ahead. You know what I'm going to say, right? Grab your journal, and let's get to it. So what we're doing is we're assessing and adapting our goals to whatever. Assessing and adapting our goals. So grab your journal, and here's today's challenge. Number one, review one of your current goals. So go ahead and say, hey, this is one of the things that I plan to do. I'm going to review current goals. Is it still relevant? And does it still excite me? Remember, we're talking about these goals that we have set, right? SMART goals: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. And I may have created that 5 years ago, 10 years ago. I may have created it at the beginning of this 100-day walk to consistency. I may have created it yesterday. But is it still relevant? And does it still excite me? When I think about it, when I envision it, when I am going through the process, the procedures, when I'm looking at the milestones that I'm reaching, does this still excite me? And if it does, then great. If it doesn't, So identify one area where you might need to adapt, right? So how have circumstances changed for a particular, whatever this thing is? Have they changed? And is the current thing I'm doing working? Am I moving in the right direction? Is my rhythm, alignment, and structure of such that it will take me to that place? Okay. What do I need to do? What do I need to adapt? Do I need to access different resources? Do I need to change my time frame? Is my goal specific enough? Am I able to measure it? Does it align with what I want to do? Is it relevant? Okay. And then do I have the appropriate time? Maybe I need to extend the time. Maybe I need to say, instead of it being due next week or next month or a year from now, I got to push that down the road. Okay. Now, there are certain things that we know the time, and we've given some data. For example, weight, right? We want people we say a good sustainable weight loss is about 0.5 pound to 1 pound a week. Okay. So if you are not losing 0.5 pound to 1 pound a week, what do I need to do? Is there something else I need to deal with first before I come back to this? Because it may be that my stress is of such that my cortisol level is so high that my weight's not changing, right? Maybe I'm an emotional eater and I've got to deal with that. Maybe there is stuff around my house, right, that I have access to that I've got to adjust, right? So what do I need to do to adapt? Is what I'm currently doing working for me? And if it's not, let's change it. And then I want you to write a pivot plan. You know what a pivot plan is? What's one adjustment you can make while still working towards the larger goal? So as you're moving to the goal, to the success, what's one thing that you can do that sets you up for the possibility of success? What's one thing you could change? Maybe it enhances where you are, maybe it enhances what you do, but what's one thing that you can do in addition to what you're doing now to basically pivot in another direction, or to adjust what you're doing so that you can maintain momentum and maintain motivation, even though you're having to adjust and even though you're having to pivot in this place. Okay? All right. So amazing conversation, right? Am I going to say it? Am I going to say it? Yep. It is. It is one of my favorite. It's one of my favorite conversations. Those are those keystone principles, those keystone things that we're doing, keystone habits that we're building. Success is not just about sticking to the right plan or sticking to a rigid plan. It's about knowing when to adjust and pivoting and keeping the process going, moving forward. People who reach their goals aren't the ones who never struggle, never have fear, never have to adjust, never have to pivot. They're the ones who stay adaptable while still moving forward, moving in the right direction. They're staying committed. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking about another keystone principle that will help as we move through the space of being successful. You are in the right place. You are adequate. You are appropriate. You are sufficient for your success. And all of these principles that we're working on, all these things that we're learning, are an amazing way for us to continue moving in that direction. Remember, every day you show up, you are building a better version of yourself. You are building a more consistent, a more self-sufficient, a more self-confident version of ourselves. We're coming back tomorrow for day number 60. Thank you for joining me for my 100-day walk to consistency. This is Dr. Dwain Woode. That's Wood with an E. The E stands for endocrinology. Here I educate, I empower, and I encourage you to take charge of your health, your life, avoid complications, and go to the next level. And in this year, Limitless Living says that there's nothing outside of me or nothing in me that's going to prevent me from doing what I need to do to be successful. I am presenting my best self, my best health, and my best plans for my life. I'll see you on the walk tomorrow.